get Marcia Price to the stage. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's an honor. It's an honor to share this space and this stage with literal Black history facts in these beautiful Black people. I have just a few thoughts that I want to share with you today, but I first want to thank Latasha and Cliff and the team for including Virginia on your stops and for all of the work that you're doing. And I want to welcome y'all to Virginia because the Black communities that we have in Virginia are much like yours and the ones you've seen on your tour stops. We are bold, beautiful, strong, and resilient. But I say resilient with a heavy heart because I know that we are, but no one should have to be this resilient. And it's because of the 401-year history of the first Africans that were stolen from their land and came to the shores just down 64 at Point Comfort. And every year since then, the same hatred and greed that established the transatlantic slave trade keeps coming for us, and we keep having to fight back. But some may ask, what are voting rights? Not everybody knows, y'all, so let's tell them. Voting rights are the basic human rights being treated as political footballs whenever Black folk choose to use our equal power. They are the entry point into democracy as full human beings that scares those whose political platforms have left us behind for decades. They are what passive and active racists try to snatch first when they realize that they can't win without cheating. They are the way that spineless people try to attack us, not because we are weak, but because we are strong. Our voting rights stay under attack because Black voters have, always will, mattered, and they know it too. Seriously, at each turn in history, systemic attacks on voting rights have occurred. We fought for our freedom, got it, and Black men were thriving during Reconstruction politically. But they were like, oh no, we didn't mean for y'all to build that much with the little power we gave you. And then came the Jim Crow laws that cracked down on Black people, and they knew they made it illegal for Black people to hold books. They put obstacles in between us and our finances, so they came with the literacy tests and the poll taxes. We fought the change in the multiple facets of the civil rights movement, and we got the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But Black people, then we got Shelby v. Holder, the war on drugs, policies that criminalize the poor, and all kinds of obstacles to our health, safety, security, and education against which we have continued to fight. And in the face of one of the most blatantly racist and malicious administrations, we showed up to vote like we know we have our power and turned the tides again. Especially when Black voters in Georgia showed up to show the world that they are not apathetic or complacent, but empowered. And just like clockwork, state legislatures are coming up with spiteful and evil power grabs out of desperation, attacking our voting rights yet again. But just as we know the history and the present of what they have done, my God, because of some wise elders, we know the history of what we have done. And that's when we learned the name of Evelyn Butts from Norfolk, who sued to end the poll tax and won. That's when you know the name Attorney J. Thomas Newsom from Newport News, who argued before the Supreme Court for voting rights. And so many that thought it not robbery to use their time, talent, intellect, and fighting spirit to be the change and do the work for freedom. What those who seek to put us back in chains do not know is that our power was never given to us by another man or a governmental structure, but from our Creator and Redeemer. We know that when Medgar Evers said, "Until freedom comes," that did not imply that we are supposed to sit and wait for freedom, but that we are committed to standing up like you are doing now to do what's right and fight to create the world we all deserve. Latasha and Cliff, I want you to know, you done pulled up to a little different situation here in Virginia, okay? Because when you see the maps on the news of the states that are doing the regressive voting rights bills, that's not Virginia. And let's be very clear, that's not because of luck or chance, that is because of black women's work. That's because of activists and advocates and legislators coming together. And from the legislative perspective, I, along with Senator Jen McClellan, have been using our time, talent, resources to pass legislation. We've been trying for years, and this is nonpartisan, but I'm gonna just say something happened in the 2019 elections that led to 2020 when we got our bills passed. And we helped protect the voting rights of Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities all over the Commonwealth. I, a Black woman from Newport News, Virginia, am the chair of the House Voting Rights Subcommittee. And I can tell you, those restrictive voting rights bills were put forward, but we killed them all. And let me tell you what we did pass. House Bill 1255 in 2020 made racial, political, and prison gerrymandering illegal in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Senator McClellan and I knew that while some others were fighting about who was going to draw the lines, that the foundational thing was how they were going to be drawn. We expanded early voting, vote by mail, the types of voter ID that can be used, enhanced access for voters with disabilities, and expanded access to the ballot, automatic voter registration. And we brought Sunday voting to Virginia, so whereas Delegate Bagby says you can go to church, go vote, and take your family to brunch all on the same day. And as was stated, we were the first state in the South to pass our own Voting Rights Act, and it is the most comprehensive in the nation. The Voting Rights Act of Virginia was a collaborative labor of love with me and Senator McClellan, New Virginia Majority, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, the Advancement Project, and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and we got it done. But what's important for perspective is that some of the members that sit with me in the chamber were alive during 1965, and they've been fighting us ever since. But we got it done. 1965 was the year that we became a democracy, with the full inclusion of voters that have been left behind by previous constitutional amendments. That means our democracy is young, and that means we've got to protect it. But watch this. Audre Lorde taught us that, as I paraphrase, the true focus of revolutionary change is never merely the current situation we face, but to unlearn the colonial power dynamics we have been taught. Our paradigm shift to liberation is possible if we stay true to ourselves and what we know, who we are. We must embrace collaboration to truly inclusive ways, and that's the power they're afraid of. They know we don't need their table in order to eat. We can build our own beloved community where we and our real allies can build side by side for a world we deserve. And as I come to a close, for those of you that are here in Virginia, as students of history, we know that it's cyclical. And that's why we have to center the voices of the most marginalized. And while we can't sit idly by, we also have to fight for Georgia, Texas, Arizona, Florida, Iowa, and the like. We know that we have a Voting Rights Act today, but it could be gone tomorrow. And we know that national legislation is the only way that all of our families will be protected across the country. So it is time today to let us recommit to the cause of action. Our ancestors are whispering in our ears to keep going, to keep fighting, to keep building, and to stay grounded in the knowledge that Black lives matter, Black futures matter, and Black votes matter.